to some sides having a catastrophic Boxing Day, and for others going on their own goal fests being marched on, we have heaps to discuss on tonight's edition of the FPL Addicts podcast, with just another deadline around the corner. Fantasy managers, good evening or good morning, wherever you may be tuning into Game Week 20 edition of the FPL Addicts podcast. For tonight, your host, and just like the elephant on top of a tree, he's somehow still on top. It's a matter of time of when's he going to get down. It is your host in Charlie Roberts. And tonight, once again, I'm joined by someone from the FPL Amateurs Australia podcast in Quentin. Quentin, good evening to you. And just want to double check, is that really your living room?
No, it's not. It's a backdrop, mate. I'm actually in the spare bedroom, which is just white walls and a plain bed, mate. So nothing too exciting in here.
Quentin, first of all, how was your Christmas and how did you find this festive football period? It's been games galore, and for us FPL managers, it's the best time of the year.
No, it's been good. As we saw on last week's show, I actually had a decent week. So I was pretty happy with the week before. And then this week was a little bit of a downer, but I still managed to salvage a slight red arrow. So it wasn't too bad. There were so many missed chances in every single game on the weekend. And I think we were just speaking off air about the Spurs-Brighton game. I had a lot of invested interest in that game. And yeah, didn't get too much out of that game. But nah, I love Christmas period just for that reason. There's deadlines galore. You finish a week and then within a day the next game week starts. So it's been good.
Indeed, because we've got so much to catch up on. Very briefly, we'll go through Game Week 18. One of the main discussion points will be Game Week 19, but also turning our attention to Game Week 20. Just on the right-hand side here, we have got the Game Week 18 scores. And looking at all of this, I think the worthy starting point is the Aston Villa versus Sheffield United game, which, according to the effective ownership, Ollie Watkins was the most favoured captain for the game week, more than Salah and Sean Min-Son. Quentin, were you one of those that backed Aston Villa's number 11?
No, I didn't, mate. I got let down from Watkins the week before, and I thought that was 1 week good enough for me, and I'm not going to do that again. So I ended up going with Salah, but I wasn't too disappointed to see Watkins wasn't on the score sheet, just because I know if he was on the score sheet, we probably weren't winning the game. Oh, sorry. We're looking at week 20. Sorry. I've jumped through to
that's all right.
The next
I'm
week.
on got Game Week 18.
Yeah.
It's very quick.
Yeah, sorry. I had Aston. Yeah, sorry, I did have Watkins as my captain, unfortunately. Didn't get a massive return. So, yeah, it was... I sort of expected a better showing from Watkins. Heading into this fixture, I think we've seen Sheffield minimize the attacking returns of popular assets in the past, and me being me decided that I wasn't going to look at the history and go what was in front of me, and did not work out at all.
Quentin, from your perspective, were there certain games within that? It was quite a gigantic. Well, it was Friday night, of course, but Saturday games, was there any that really stood out to you?
I would say maybe the Bournemouth Nottingham Forest game.
I was thinking the same of this as well. It's a cracker.
Yeah, so Solanke still got massive return, but he could have had more. Could have been about 5 goals watching that fixture. So I'll take the big points return from Solanke, but it could have been massive. And I'm not sure if you saw on the socials, my co-host captain Solanke that week as well. So I was the first person he messaged when he woke up in the morning to let me know that I should have just copied him for the week. So Damo always doing big things on the podcast. He's a West Ham fan, so things are always massive in terms of Damo's FPL, but it could have been a lot more than the 3 goals. So I think Solanke's proving to be quite a consistent asset, and Bournemouth are playing exciting football.
They are too, and your podcast friend in Damo had an extremely high game week ranking too. At one stage, being 650th.
Yes, it was ridiculous. I thought I was high when I think I was 3,000 for the week, and I thought, oh, how good's that? And Damo sort of sent me through the screenshot, and he said, oh, look how high I am. So he had to one-up me.
Just to briefly bow out, we'll go for Wolves Chelsea, because in terms of a fantasy manager perspective, conundrum-wise, it only got worse because Palmer decided to have Christmas off, kick the ball away, and Raheem Sterling got booked, who's a somewhat semi-popular asset in the fantasy game. Also got suspended and got his 5th booking for the season. But for Wolves-wise, it was a relatively important win. I think there's one person that has sort of caught my eye. I'm not sure about you, but Sarabia seems to be evolved a lot in a lot of Wolves goals, and I don't think anyone's really giving him a mention.
Yeah, no, well, just looking at their game on the weekend, he was involved in everything, and usually it's the likes of Cunha or Huang, but he was providing pretty much most of the attack, and I think 5 chances created as well. So he's actually consistently the last sort of few weeks being one of their most creative players, and doesn't always transfer to FPL, but this game he could have had a lot more like FPL returns, which would make him a popular option because a lot of people still have Huang in their team. So, if you're going to have Huang in the team, you've definitely got to be looking at Sarabia.
Yeah, speaking of Huang, who we'll touch base shortly, and him needing to depart for Asia Cup, or in actual fact, he got injured against Brentford. Should managers consider a sideways move to either Pedro Neto, who made an appearance on the bench, or Sarabia? Because Zarabia's showing the more form, but in terms of probably ceiling and the rate of consistency, Pedro Neto showed it early in the season.
Yeah, well, just looking at the last 4 fixtures, he's had 3 attacking returns in his last 4 fixtures. So, I think we've seen with Wolves that if there's an asset like that stands out, hits a purple patch, it usually lasts for a few weeks. And I couldn't imagine it'd be too expensive either. So I definitely don't mind the sideways move because Wolves have looked a lot better in attack than they looked early in the season. I was quite worried where the goal's going to come from, but probably the last sort of month or so, they've been really good.
Yeah, I think Gary O'Neill's done a really good job at Wolves too, because we did hear a lot of people question him departing. Well, in actual fact, getting sacked from Bournemouth, going to Wolves, and then doing what he's doing. And Sarabia, I had to guess he would be 4.7. He's actually a 4.7 million midfielder. Same price as Garnacho for Manchester United, which I genuinely find that quite crazy.
Yeah, well, we are going to be looking. I guess we're going to have a lot of cash to splash with, the players that are leaving for the Asia Cup and the Africa Cup of Nations. But I don't mind that option, leaving a little bit of money on the bench, obviously for the return of Haaland and even Kevin De Bruyne, which could be a couple of game weeks away. So I don't mind a move to these sort of enabling assets still, even though we're not having to sort of, I guess, have them in our team because we have all that extra money. But I don't mind a couple of those cheaper assets. I think I spoke to someone today about Garnacho. So if you're talking about Garnacho in what I'd say is a pile of poop in Manchester United, I think you have to be looking at Sarabia, who's actually playing in a side that hasn't looked too bad.
Moving swiftly to Game Week 19, the results that have just gone by. Looking at the first 5 fixtures going half and half, there's one game I want to go to because you called this last time you were on the pod. Another Luton victory, Quentin. Take the floor.
Yeah, I was actually quite impressed of how they played. I sort of thought it would be, I did say that they'd get the win, but I thought it would be a bit of a ball fest. But actually, it was quite exciting this game, and there could have been a few more goals in this fixture. And, looking at Luton, they don't have one play that sort of stands out from an FPL perspective, but it might be something to take away from maybe targeting them because they have looked a lot better, especially at home. So I think that's what I took out of this fixture is Luton might not be that team that you consider bank on clean sheets against because they looked quite good in attack and probably not a team you can target. I know we've got certain players that are facing Luton this week that a lot of people are sort of rushing to get in. Maybe it's a bit of food for thought looking at the result from this week in the last couple of games that maybe it's not the fixture everyone's hoping for.
At home to Chelsea on Saturday. Speaking of one of the gems who did score, but when you partially, I thought it was really poor goalkeeping from foddering him, which has brought to my conclusion that he should be dropped from that Sheffield United team. Alfie Doughty, all of a sudden, he got a return against Arsenal, Manchester City, from what I can recall, and then got another one here. I think he's priced at 4.5 million now. Is he a defender you'd think worth considering from a budget perspective?
Yeah, well, I don't think he's just as good an asset as what Taylor is from Burnley. And looking at Burnley lately, I don't think they're going to keep a clean sheet anytime soon. And Luton's defense has looked a lot better. And he's actually a player we were looking at. I think it could have been maybe about 6 or 7 game weeks ago, heading to that double sort of where they had the double game week. He's actually looked really good in attack. And I was looking at the stats like early in the season, and he was actually creating a few chances from that sort of wing back position, but no one was obviously finishing the chances. So there was no FPL points. So he's kind of stayed under the radar, but he's a quite attacking fullback, gets into great positions. And looking at the history of last season, the championship, he provided a few assists and was probably nearly one of the best attacking fullbacks in the championship. So I think there is a little bit of form underlying with looking at him, and I definitely think he's a pick. And people have Taylor on their bench. I don't think Doughty's like a worse option. I think he's just as good, if not maybe a little bit better.
Before going to the latter games within Game Week 19, Quentin, did you want to have a quick word on your side, Manchester United, and their second half resurrection?
Yeah, it was great. I was pretty much done in that first half. I was watching the game, and it was painful. It just looked like 11 separate players playing on the pitch, and no one wanted to pass the ball to each other. And the final pass is horrible, and it doesn't help when you concede 2 early goals and you go down 2-0. Your back's against the wall. But that second half, it's probably the best sort of half of football we've played in, I'd say, 3 months. Garnacho was making fantastic runs. Rashford looked a lot better, more confident on the ball, was beating players, getting balls into the box. And we saw Rasmus get the goal that, been praying for miracles to happen. And,
yes,
he finally got some service. And I've been saying it for weeks now, is if we just get the ball into the box for him, he can score goals. We saw it in the Champions League and on the weekend. So I think it was off a set piece into the box, bounced back, and he hit it, put it in, the bottom corner. So I definitely like the look of Garnacho. He's just an incredible player to watch. And there's games where I'm thinking he could definitely get more attacking chances if our, attack sorts itself out. In that second half, our attack looked really good. We could have had another 2 goals. I think we had 1 chalked off. So I think with the fixtures coming up, you're going to want to look at a player, and I think Garnacho is probably the most obvious. I don't think Rashford's worth the money. I don't think Bruno's worth the money. But Rasmus, if he can find a bit of purple patch, he's definitely an option. I think he's only 7 million up top there, so it's another option for people to go. But yeah, I think Garnacho, he's on my list. I think my co-host brought him in for this upcoming game week. So the first thing he said to me was, "I hate myself, but I've done it." And then he showed me the screenshot of Garnacho on his side. But if I didn't have a few other issues this week, I probably would have went to Garnacho.
Speaking of issues, we need to talk about one team against another side who have issues defensively, but on this occasion, they were superior for 80 minutes of a game. I'll put that as an asterisk. Brighton versus Tottenham, where João Pedro showed converting his penalty, a Stepinian Rocket Man, a bit of an audition Elton John type, and Spurs chucked 81 crosses into their own box within the last 10 minutes. Quentin, that was a lot to digest on the Amex.
Yeah, it was. I would say the game of missed opportunities. I think what was Richarlison offside about 3 times for 3 1-on-1s, and then he hit the post and then missed 2 clear headers off Son passes as well. So it was surprising. I didn't expect Brighton to be that good, but they would come out firing, and Spurs just didn't have an answer in that first half. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall in that dressing shed at halftime, because I think Ange would have been ready to strangle someone, because it was disappointing how they played football in that first half. But credit to them, that second half, they could have easily had another 6 or 7 goals to sort of turn that fixture around. But I still think you're wanting these Spurs assets. I think Son's got another game week before he heads off to the Asia Cup, and then you've got the likes of Brennan Johnson, who I think was pretty unlucky not to get an attack and return. I think he had about 6 or 7 chances created in this fixture, but just Spurs just couldn't finish the chances. And Pedro Porro was probably man of the match for me from Spurs. He was incredible. I think he could have had 2 goals. Like, there were decent chances.
They were. I just find it mind-blowing too how he gets 2 bonus despite scoring 4 goals. In addition, Pervis Estupinian, in your eyes, Quentin, is he all of a sudden back onto the high priority part of your radar?
Yep, that goal is just why he needs to be in your side, because he does that. Like, that wasn't a one-off. He does that quite frequently and gets great shots off, but also his attacking presence. And I think that's what Brighton have missed, is the way that he can go down that wing, getting great attacking positions, draw defenders out of the box, which then leaves space for the likes of Pedro and Ferguson and Pascal Gross. So I think of him playing, Brighton are a completely different team, and we probably need to start looking at them a bit differently compared to probably the last 4 to 5 weeks, where we're like, oh, a team's got Brighton, we target them because they haven't been great. But with Purvis back, I definitely think they're a different team.
It's a great way to look at it, because De Zerbi himself is an attacking-minded manager. We'll go straight to your team, Quentin, from last game week. We'll try to put it full screen and got it off your screenshot. And you speak of Porro, you got his points. How did you go arrow-wise?
I think I had maybe a 10K, 20K red arrow, so it wasn't too bad. I think I started the week at about 540K, and I think I finished on about 570K or 560K or something like that. So it was a minimal rank change for me, but what could have been, I had Areola on the bench with the 10 points, which
fun,
who would have thought that Newcastle would have got slapped by Nottingham Forest? I did not pick that one at all, but I'm pretty happy with my side still. Like, looking at the likes of my Spurs assets, definitely could have been a lot better than what they had. And Salah, frustrating. He could have had a couple of goals as well, but I'm happy with my team heading into this week. As I said, I'm not sure whether I'm going to make a move or not. I might just roll the transfer this week, but can't do too much about this week. A lot of people are in the same boat as me. Some people are a lot worse off than me, so I won't complain too much.
I like your comments there. As Kudus is also going to AFCON as well. What's your approach heading into game week 21, especially trying to sort him and Mo Salah potentially shipped out of your team?
Yeah, so I'm going to have Son, Kudus, and Salah I'm going to have to get rid of. But, as I said, I wanted Garnacho in this week, but as I said to you, I'm not sure who I'd take out. But Garnacho will be coming into my side for Kudus, possibly Bowen for Salah, and then looking at maybe a City asset for Son. But we'll see. Like, I'm tempted to keep Salah, because if I get out Son, I'm going to have the money for Haaland when he comes back. But I just don't know whether I can justify keeping, someone of Salah's price on the bench for about 3 or 4 weeks. So, I've got a few options there, a couple of differential options. And obviously with Purvis back, he might take a bit more of a priority than getting rid of Salah or something over the next week. So, it'll be a bit of a watch and wait for myself.
Okay, so I've seen this question on Twitter today. I wanted to get your take on it. Out of Salah and Son, who would you prioritize in terms of selling and benching?
I think, in my opinion, I think that South Korea will run late into the tournament. I could see them either in the final or the semi-finals, which would probably leave Son out for, at least probably 3 to 4 games. And then Salah, I actually don't think Egypt are going to make it deep into the tournament. I wouldn't be surprised if they maybe make the knockout round and leave after that first game. So I think Salah realistically could be back before 24. So I'm probably saying bench Salah and sell Son. And depending what value you have as well, tied up in Salah as well.
Just briefly, just have to touch base with my own podcast league. Somehow still on top. Elliot's making a cheeky charge. We'll go to Chris Reedy's team, who we've had a chat with within the last week. Look, he's got Chan. He scored 2. Brentford gifted 1 for his late Christmas for his second goal. Son, Archer, not bad assists there. And yep, again, Ariel on the bench. He's 2.9 million. He's about as slow as a snail, and I don't really understand what his season ambitions are. Oliver Walker-Peel played his free hit, which is quite intriguing. Quentin, do you understand the merit of managers who would want to play a free hit in a game week that has just gone by?
Maybe just trying to mix things up. I think it wasn't last season and the season before. I think I used my free hit like week 3 or week 4, just because I wanted to target certain players that I wasn't going to have the next week due to bad fixtures. But yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just looking at the side. What did he end up on? 56 points.
Oh, sorry. No, I went a bit too quick. He only got 35, so he got the double Liverpool clean sheet and the Son assist, and that's it.
Yeah, I love Ollie, mate, but yeah, I'm not sure.
I don't know either.
But yeah, power to him. Like, I think I've used the triple captainship early in this season and didn't work out at all for me. So I can't, I guess, be too negative on it because I've done a similar with another chip where it hasn't worked out and didn't look good at all.
The executive of the podcast team, Jack Gillibrand, scored 56 this week. He's had a slow start to the season, but this may be one of his finest today. Got Chan, Seneze clean sheet, which I've seen with some sides. I did pick up the Bournemouth defender, and he delivered on this occasion. Watching the game, I know we didn't touch base on it on the fixture, and what a privilege it was to 2 a.m. just to watch Utara put on a masterclass, Alex Scott go dancing in the stars around the box to set up Clivert's goal. It was such a joy. Yeah, Seneze, Bowen. See, both who held Bowen during his injury, absolute masterstroke. He was a lot better hold than those that had both Bowen and Matoma. Because I think Matoma at the time would be a bit more expendable, and it's certainly proven that way because Matoma just can't get a return these days.
No, especially in the side that, I mean, against Spurs, I sort of thought that he might get something, but yeah, it was coming from elsewhere.
Yeah. The Reverend getting 34, got Porro assist, double Liverpool clean sheet, which helps. Bowen with his assist, Son with an assist. Where's it? I mean, goals for Alvarez and Solanke. So it's actually not a bad game week, and a fair few contributors chipping in. Elliot with his half century, raised the bat, nothing else. Zeneze, Porro, Alexander-Arnold, Ward-Prowse got an assist as well from the corner, thanks to Mavropanos' header. Yes, I don't want to talk about Arsenal because we were garbage, and Alvarez gets his goal rightly so. But this is where it's at. 30 points. Just like the Glazers on the beers, I'm getting red arrows for 10 more years. It's just where it's at. You got Porro an assist, Sudden assist, Solanke goal, and thanks for coming. And that's Bournemouth's first penalty in 609 days. Who would have thought about that? Yeah, so Bournemouth. I think it might be an intriguing watch at the moment. So just double check. I forgot you're a Solanke owner.
Yeah, I am. So would you look at a captaincy option against the Spurs defense that we saw this morning?
It's very intriguing because I've got a captaincy coming up. He's not in it, and one from Spurs is at the moment. I think so because Ange isn't going to change his game plan, and Bournemouth are quite attacking. He's on the forefront. I think a big thing that Dom Solanke's had this season is confidence. In previous seasons with other clubs, he hasn't had that. But under Bournemouth and Areola, his game style really suits Solanke's attributes and his strengths. I think that's the best way to look at it. Just going very quickly as part of the job here. We've got the Women's League here. It's actually quite tight at the moment as part of the FPL Addicts. 2 points between the top two, between Melissa and Helen, and you've got 25 points separating third and seventh. Just try and get the other one. Solanke, I think so. There hasn't been much talk on Marcus Tavernier ever since that game at Old Trafford either. It's been more Solanke and Seneze. Do you feel as managers we got a bit overreactionary in terms of Tavernier's potential and the role he has within the team?
Well, I think he started 2 straight games and he was looking great, creating a lot of goal chances. Wasn't getting the massive returns, but was getting FPL returns. But I think it was the next game he got benched again, and it was kind of like, oh, well, is he now like we thought he was? But then, I guess he's an enabler, but then when we spoke about the likes of Garnacho, Pascal Gross, I don't think is that expensive either. You probably got better players at that cheaper price that are going to start most weeks rather than, I guess, taking that punt on an enabler from Bournemouth who might be benched. So I think it was just a lot of us assumed that he had that spot locked down, but then obviously the next week, I think it was after our podcast, I said about Tavernier as, one of the best pickups for the week, and then he got benched that following game week. So
yeah, not great for his
and from those assets, you're looking at the teams like Bournemouth where you're picking those assets because they're going to play every week, unlike sort of the Pep rotation or other bigger clubs in the league, and you're picking him up and next minute he's getting rotated as well. So I think there's a few negatives around sort of bringing him in as an option until we can see he's going to get consistent game time.
Into the old public league we go. We've got Stephen up the top, but there's actually one person that we know quite familiar who we'll get to his team very shortly. I'm not sure if he's watching at the moment, but so Old Man SC, who's ranked 2,652nd, which is quite impressive. 47, not too bad for a game week. Probably a very tiny green arrow. Porro, Alexander-Arnold, Salah, unfortunately blank. Bowen, Solanke, and Alvarez were the contributors. But because he's in the top 11 and we can see his name without the need to scroll, similar to going on an iPhone and you don't have to scroll through Chelsea's 2015-16 position. Let's go to TN side. He finished on 40 points. Porro, Alexander-Arnold, Bowen, and Solanke. Quentin, as TN as a manager, I wanted to try and get him on the pod tonight. What stands out to you in terms of the traits that he has and his preparation behind the game?
Like usually he is pretty safe, but he plays smart safe. It's not just following the crowd, but he's had a couple of decent picks where he's got on players before. I guess the rest of the FPL community on Twitter sort of found those players, which has helped him the last few weeks. He's actually had some decent scores, and they've been from like players. I think he got on Solanke a bit early. I think he got on Jesus before his first sort of, I guess, I wouldn't say haul, but first good points in the last few weeks. So he's been finding these players that sort of aren't highly owned and getting on them early, getting their points before they become popular. So it's actually, he did it a lot last season as well, but just consistently the last few weeks he's been doing it week in, week out, which has helped him get up the ranks.
Straight to between game week 20 fixtures we go, which starts tomorrow night all the way at Kenilworth Road. Luton, the side that we have mentioned already on this episode, up against Chelsea with Cole Palmer coming back from suspension and Raheem Sterling. Likewise for him. Quentin, more than happy to touch on this early kickoff, but what are some other games as part of this gorgeous menu spread across the span of 4 days, UK-wise, that you're looking forward to for most?
I actually think Spurs versus Bournemouth is going to be match of the weekend. I could see no clean sheets whatsoever, no defense. It's going to be all attack. It wouldn't surprise me if it was high scoring. And, I could see Spurs getting that one, maybe 3-2. I think they're going to concede, which, unfortunate for a Poro owner, is not great. But I could definitely see Pedro getting some attacking returns in that fixture. But I think Spurs are going to make up for what was a lackluster first half, and I think they're going to start this game on fire, and I can see them getting the win. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really good game.
So there's two. Of course, City would be called the obvious one. I completely agree with that. But so Palace Brentford, not so much from an FPL perspective. I mean, if you've got a Palace attacker, it might prove fruitful. But Brentford have lost 4 in a row. Palace are probably 1 defeat away from Roy Hodgson. But from a Premier League perspective, I actually think this is one of the games of a round that has so much stake and riding on it. And for those that have back differentials from both sides, I think that would pan out quite well, to be fair. But the main one, West Ham versus Brighton, FPL-wise. Because you see a lot jumping on Jared Bowen and seeing who benches / fielders Areola. Plus on the Brighton hand, some may go for Purvis Estupiñán, some may go for Pascal Gross, or for any zombie teams out there that still have Joao Pedro. In your eyes, Q, what are you expecting from the game on Tuesday night at the London Stadium?
I think there's going to be goals in this fixture, and I've actually got Kudus as a bit of a differential captain pick for this week. I think he's going to give a nice little parting gift, almost like a late Christmas present. Where you look around the tree, you think all the presents are gone. Next minute, Kudus has left a nice little haul before he goes off to international duty. So I actually think he's a decent option. And Bowen, I'd put in the same bracket as well. If you've got Bowen, I think he could be a decent option. And, looking at Pedro, a good friend of mine at D10 Football actually got Pedro in last week. And he woke up this morning and he was cheering. And, I was happy for him because Pedro's actually consistently been playing every game, and if he's not playing up top, he's playing out wide. So he could be a nice sneaky option in this fixture as well. And West Ham, 2 clean sheets in a row, but surely that's not the new norm. I don't think they can keep keeping these clean sheets, but we'll see.
Back on stage now. We're going to look at the transfer traffic very quickly in terms of the top 5 out and the top 5 in. Q, are there any names that catch you by surprise, or do all of them look as expected?
I'm surprised with the amount of people going for Alvarez. Obviously, him being on penalties, no Haaland. He's got a lot of people pretty happy, but I actually thought Foden and Bernardo Silva are probably the 2 options from City that I think could possibly be the better options over the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, I was a little bit surprised at the amount of people bringing in Alvarez, especially with the amount of strikers you have to pick from in likes of Watkins, Jesus, Solanke. You could say Cunha from Wolves as well, consistently been getting returns. So, yeah, I'm a little bit surprised with that. Trent Alexander-Arnold, not surprised. He's been absolutely ridiculous the last probably 5 game weeks. So, I think people have, with that extra money, getting out the likes of Son, Salah, Haaland, have that extra money. Bowen, I can understand that. Probably a lot of people that really wanted to get Kudus in, but with him leaving, I think, he's probably not an option, and Bowen's the second best option there. So I think he's a great option. But yeah, most of those, I'm pretty confident they, would be highly owned this upcoming week. Maybe Garnacho, depending on this fixture away to Nottingham Forest, has goals in it, but yeah, I was more of a wait another week for Garnacho, but a lot of people are jumping on the bandwagon early, so good on them.
I could understand the Garnacho to an extent, probably not as high as fifth, but that Forest away game would suit him, I feel, should he get the start, because with Nuno's game style, we've already seen the first two games. They're not sound defensively, but attack-wise, I think certain players in that team are flourishing a lot better within a short period of time. For example, Chris Wood, the noticeable one, having scored his hat-trick away at Newcastle. But I really like the look of Morgan Gibbs-White, who showed it a bit under Steve Cooper from time to time. But Anthony Alanga, I think, has been the big standout, with Man United having got rid of him. As a United fan, when he was on the pitch, what did you see in terms of his potential?
He's just electrifying. He lacked a little bit of a finished product when he got into those areas in scoring goals for us, but when he left to Nottingham Forest, I thought he could be a really good pick. And I think we spoke about it, might have been in the first 5 weeks of our pod, that once he locks down that starting role, I think he becomes a really good FPL asset. And yes, he hasn't had maybe 3 or 4 game weeks in a row where he's been getting consistent returns, but the last few weeks he's just looked incredible and could have had more in that Newcastle game. But yeah, I disappointed we let him go, obviously with the lack of attacking options we have at the moment. But no, it's good to see him flourish in a team where I feel that he should be starting every week, because I think he's just the most talented player in that side, in my opinion.
Are you surprised by Gordon being seriously the most transferred out, or do you feel it should have been Trippier or elsewhere?
I actually thought Gordon would have been the most transferred out last week, because I just don't think their fixtures have been that good. And Gordon, yes, he's had FPL returns, but consistently compared to people around that price, like if you spent a little bit extra and went Kudus or went Palmer, I feel like they've been consistently getting more attacking chances in better positions and more like as a talisman for their side. Whereas I don't think Gordon is. I think it's almost spread out. Like Almiron's had his moments. We've had Wilson when he starts. He's had his moments. Isak's had his moments. So I just don't think Gordon's that player we're going to get consistent returns from. So I was actually surprised it wasn't last week or the week before that he was getting transferred out.
I think what I've noticed on Twitter especially is there's certain phases of sides in which one would be those that have got a gigantic injury conundrum and have no choice but to field players that don't have the most favourable fixtures, or those that have 2 free transfers, loads of money in the bank, probably more than Commonwealth and ANZ combined, and could just go for whoever they like. In terms of your side and how you're shaping up heading into the coming game weeks, what part of the spectrum is your side on at the moment in terms of most luxurious as possible to absolute carnage?
It's not too bad, actually, to be honest. I think I've got about 4 million in the bank. I've got the free transfer for this week, but I'm in a position where I don't really need to make a transfer, because the only player that I get out this week was Kudus, and I think he's going to score in this fixture. So yeah, I'm actually in a really good position. I've got the money there, so I can go to Haaland if he comes back. And I do have obviously the fires of Kudus, Son, and Salah to put out, but keeping them for another week leaves me with 2 transfers next week, and I'm happy just to bench one if I can't get them all 3 out over the next few weeks. So yeah, I'm actually I feel like I'm in a pretty good position. My defense is good. But yeah, with the likes of Purvis coming back, he is another option that I can move sort of a Sufal or even a Taylor onto.
Q, was there any points worth discussing heading into game week 20, or certain talking points you really took out of the game week that has gone by?
Maybe just looking towards the upcoming game weeks with what formation you're going to be playing, because would you prefer to have the 5, not premium midfielders, but spending more money in your midfield, or still playing with the 3 strikers up top? Because there's a lot of options up top and a lot of options in the midfield. So I think this could be a bit of a fork in the road, where you could go one way and it could pay off, or you go that way and you could end up falling behind.
I think as merit now for the first time this campaign, which you could be able to downgrade that fifth midfielder slot, because throughout the entire season, it's been 3-5-2 mainly, template, Watkins, Haaland up front. But having seen Dom Solanke, especially come in as a replacement for Haaland, and then with that spare change, you could bring in another striker, and that's a great route for points. I think it probably is a 3-4-3. You want to avoid fielding more than 3 defenders, I feel, because clean sheets are hard to come by. But on the other side of the equation, you want to trust attacking defenders. So the two that clearly stand out are Alexander-Arnold and Pedro Porro. It's more finding the other one, because Trippier I don't think is it at the moment. Purvis Stupinian could be, but we need to see more from him. How do you see this formation being evolved in the weeks to come?
Yeah, it's a good thing you brought up the fullbacks, because I feel like they're starting to come back into play a little bit in terms of attacking returns, not more like the clean sheets. But in a couple of weeks, you're going to have Man United, and we've been pretty bad this season. But Diego Dalot could become an option as well with our good fixtures. So the likes of Dalot, Porro, Trent, Trippier, Purvis, Arsenal like Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko. I feel like that's also another factor to be looking at, because a lot of people might be investing a little bit of extra leftover cash from the no Haaland and other premium assets missing, maybe putting into their defensive line. You might see the switch to 4 at the back.
That's a real funny one, the whole entire situation. Players who are going to AFCON and Asia Cup, you said you've got players affected again. It was Salah, and then there's Kudus, and then there's Son. Is that right? Son, yeah. So you're going to get rid of Kudus. You're probably going to bench Salah at the moment, only because they're going further in. Is that correct?
I think he could be back by week 24. I think that they'll make it out of the group, but I think that's where their journey will finish. I don't think they'll make it deep into the tournament. So depending on whether they rest him or not, but I could see him back before Son, which my value held up in him. I think I've got Salah at his starting price. So I think he's worth 13.3 or 13.4 now. Yeah, and when I looked at selling him when I was just playing around with my side, you're only getting 12.9. So whereas Son, I got him as what his starting price was as well, but I feel like it's not as bad if I get him out compared to Salah if I don't need to.
I think the whole idea for Son is being made redundant too, because with the amount of Spurs options there are in attack, and they're not as rotation prone as opposed to other Liverpool midfielders such as Jota, Gakpo. Who's the others that are in that midfielder slot? It's not Darwin Núñez, but all of those could be rotated. But for Spurs, considering their injury crisis, which downplays their outcomes usually, but the starts from their midfielders become a lot more secure. For example, Maddison coming back mid-January, the one that you pointed out 2 weeks ago, pretty much him, the playmaker of that side, Kulusevski, Brennan Johnson. You've got alternatives there, along with Richarlison.
Yeah. And Lo Celso as well, which will probably see a bit more game time once Son leaves as well, until Maddison's back. And I think Kulusevski's out this week with a yellow card. So
Lo Celso, silly too.
Lo Celso is, I think, 4.8. Yeah, 4.8 option. So that brings him in as well, and Brian Gill and Valiz as well. Their striker that scored this morning. So yeah, it'll be interesting actually, in terms of different Spurs assets you can move to.
Well, Felice may have come on and scored a goal, but it was certainly no Felice Never dud for Tottenham away at the Amex, because they just got absolutely outplayed from minute one. Sorry, mate. I just had to overtaking. Just while we take a mini break from our agenda, we go through to the comments and see how we're going. Hello, Miriam. Hope you're going well. Cole, probably right up there, one of our number one fan
Yeah,
from
he's always on the
podcast page.
streams.
So thank you very much for your support. We've also got Calvin FPL. Hello, Calvin. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you had a wonderful Christmas as well. Palace Brentford come. It's a great shout because our last 3 games have ended 1-1, and the last 2 before that finishes a goalless draw. So if you're backing a draw, make sure you put your savings. I think on it, John David. I've seen you around, out and about. Hopefully, when next chance comes about, you hit the town. But what's up, guys? Look. We got loads that is up. We got a deadline that is coming up. I'll give you that. John, what have we got here? Such a terrible week. Was hoping Odegaard to do something and was disappointed. Should have trusted Bowen to always deliver. And that's what we've learnt this season is Bowen has been such a reliable source of points. His ceiling may not be high. He may not fare well on the bonus points, but he's certainly well involved in West Ham's play making. Is that how you see it as well, Quentin?
Yeah, even if he is out of play and playing balls back in, he's always going to be putting balls into the box. But yeah, I think Bowen's the type of asset that will tick along. He won't get you 21-point hauls or 20-point hauls or anything like that, but he'll just tick along 8 points, 6 points, 10 points. So yeah, he's just consistent. And Odegaard probably should have had something this morning watching that game. He was probably the only asset outside of Jesus who just had lots of chances but just couldn't finish.
Quentin, was there another discussion point of area you wanted to touch base on?
I've seen a lot of talk about the bench boost. Would you look at a bench boost over this period, trying to get a sort of, I guess, a leg up on other managers waiting for the double game weeks?
What we did learn from game week 18 especially is that bench boost in the odd Christmas period can work absolute genius. However, overall, I see it more efficient in the double game weeks. For example, myself, I got about 35 to 40 points last season. The season before that, about 10. When I put triple leads in, lovely plum home game, everyone blanked. So you can get really unlucky on the bench boost. I don't know who they played that time. It could have been a West Brom, which would have been just such an easy fiction. They were far from being genuine deliveries.
Yeah, so, I think a lot of the people with the leftover money from selling these premium assets, they're going to be able to field a pretty strong bench boost side because where's all that money going to go? Like there's no really premium assets to spend it on. So they could have a bench that's absolutely incredible.
I think my fear when I ever let go of a premium, because my policy has always been for the last, especially 2 seasons, only captain players are above 10 mil, with the exception of double game weeks, because you're paying so much money for that player, you may as well pay the maximum amount possible. So there's been some managers which I don't really understand. I get the Watkins move, but if you're paying 4.5 more for Salah and his services, you may as well pay for that much. I get why with Watkins because of a fixture, Sheffield United at home, but that's how I sort of see that philosophy. Now, if you get rid of Salah, which some managers could, AFCON, and you don't get Haaland back in time, who's going to be your point of attack when it comes to actual captaincy and the amount of value that that player has in terms of his purchase price? Would it be a Bukayo Saka at 9 million? Would it be Ollie Watkins at 8.8? That's the tricky part.
It's just a scary spot to be in, to be honest, because
yeah, it would be.
They're either 10 points or 2 points.
Yeah. Calm asks us, this is a great shout. Now, Quentin, you could be the next Elton John on this. Could you play with Son during Chaz's Captain's Corner Son? Now, I don't have a Son, but are you a piano player?
I actually did play piano back in the day. Bit of 3 Blind Mice and a bit of
3 Blind Mice.
But yeah, I wouldn't call myself a Mozart, to be honest. But I can always Google some piano samples and I could work something out.
Wildcard team from Will Shaw, and hello to you, Will. Thank you for joining. We've got Ariola, Debraca. We love a bit of team dissections. Trent, Porro, Stupinian, Gabriel, Gusto, Salah, Foden, Richarlison, Bowen. Gusto, look, he's rating Gusto very highly. He's put it in twice. Never know if he's naughty or nice. Matteo Gusto's coming to town. That's not quite captain's corner, but just a Son, if you don't mind. Now,
but I like Gusto. Gusto actually looked quite good.
Yeah, he has. Now, do we have any points for this wildcard team here? Personally, it looks all right, but is it worth going to wildcard on Salah if you, or maybe he's held him for a while? I'm not too sure, but is it worth bringing Salah on the wildcard this week?
If you have a plan, I think what is the money in the bank for Salah to Odegaard? Yeah, I don't mind that because you want to have a plan to get Haaland in because Pep is not going to give us any information. He's got it locked down tight, and it's going to be a last minute move. So I like that option because it could be 10 minutes before deadline this week, and Pep comes out and says Haaland's training with the team. He's going to be starting this week, and all of a sudden you need to find a way to get him in. So I like doing the wild card and then having the option to maneuver to Haaland if you need to.
It's a good shout from Cole. Matt's second one for Gusto could be Cole Palmer. It's a cracking team, but my question is, who are you going to bench every week? Like, that is all playable.
Could be a bench boost, mate. Can you go wild card to bench boost?
It's not like the FPL back in the day where you could play all 3 chips at once. You can only play one at a time, but it's a great squad, but you'd have benching headaches every week. You wouldn't know who the obvious players are that are budgeted, but also they go on the bench every week regardless. That's what makes the decision-making, I feel, a lot easier. You can concentrate a lot on your 11, put big emphasis on it, and then you got your bench if you need it. For example, it comes handy during the festive period. So
yeah, well, I don't know. I feel like hopefully he's got some aspirin because he's going to have a headache working on it, who to bench in that side. But as I said, there's all this leftover money from, the premiums missing. So it does leave the opportunity for the bench boost. So I like it. He's keeping every option open. And I've tried to play that the last few weeks. It's me leaving enough money to go back to Haaland if I need to, and I think that he's doing that as well as leaving him the chance to maybe bench boost if it's an attractive week.
Has there ever been a time when you started playing fantasy football, Quentin, where there's been so much money left over in the bank, but for such a long period of time, it's very tempting to just play it straight away, but you do need a contingency plan? Have you ever had this period in previous seasons?
No, well, I'm usually like a single mum in the middle of inflation, mate, and I've got nothing to rub together. So, but yeah, lately I've just found myself. I think I've had I think the other week I had about 8 million, 8.9 million sitting in reserves ready for that move to Haaland. So I've actually found a way to save a bit of money. Penny pinchers menu, looking at these Cole Palmers and Garnachos and saving a bit of money. But yeah, I've never seen a season where we've actually been able to just say, oh, we'll just leave 3.5 million on the bench. Usually it's like, why can't FPL give us another million? Like a stimulus package.
Yeah, it did come in handy during JobKeeper period. Not sure what they call it in the UK. Jack, thank you for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Yes, it is an all Aussie lineup. For discussion and chat engagement, we'll call it as that for now, but it is time to go through our teams heading into the coming week before you save the best to last, and that is the all-important captaincy. Quentin, we'll put your team on the screen as we speak right here, right now. Here we go. So this is your side heading into game week 20, and my first thing that stands out, what an incredible side. Who's on your bench, by the way?
I've got Areola, Taylor, and I've got Brennan Johnson. And
so you've got
it'd be Sufau on my bench as well. So Sufau, Taylor, Brennan Johnson, and Areola, and Dvraka. Sorry,
Dvraka. Okay, yeah. So I wouldn't change much in regards to this team. I'd be really happy going into it as it is.
Yeah, that's why I said the only player I really would have transferred out for Foden this week was Kudus. But as we spoke about their fixture, I could see goals in that fixture, and Kudus I think is a sneaky captaincy pick for this week, a bit of a differential. So if I'm saying that, there's no way I can get him out for this week.
You're not going Mo Salah, I see.
No, I've tossing up between Kudus and Son at the moment, but the Solanke one is a little bit interesting as well, especially with how Spurs look defensively.
I think Solanke's a better captaincy shout than Tillman's Son, if anything is to go by potentially. Who knows? For Jack, I've got also a bit. I've got a bit of memo here. So Jack has done some transfer plans. I'm going to read what I received before tonight's episode as it is. So listen up, listeners. At Charlie Roberts, if you need any content, let's say. I took Wayne out for Garnacho before he scored his brace. Lucky he got injured also makes me feel better. Also brought in Neto this week, which is actually not bad because he made first appearance on the bench, as we mentioned earlier, and he's coming off just slowly recovering from an injury after Garrett O'Neill said he was back, but he didn't come off the bench. All worked out there. So Garnacho move this week for me. Garnacho for Wayne. Well, to be fair, both players did score a brace. I think he's timed that relatively well, considering Wayne's got to go. But with Wayne, I want to get your thoughts on this. Wayne is the 8th most transferred in player heading into the game, despite probably going to Asia Cup, or he's got to go to the sidelines with an injury. Could you understand that move or not?
I just think early transfers, I'd say it would have been smack bang after the Wolves game, and people would have went, I'm going to get on him now before he goes up in price. And then obviously the news come out that he's injured, where, it's bad. Like, it's similar to me, I think, last year with Chilwell. I got Chilwell in finally when I was waiting for Chelsea's fixtures, and then he didn't play a single game. So, it is an interesting one. But, we've pointed out Garnacho, Sarabia, are two alternative options for people that obviously have got Hwang in and might need an option for next week. Probably don't want to do 2 transfers in the 1 week and get them -4 for the 1 transfer. But, it's strange. But I'd say it's probably the people going in for the early transfer. And, just touching on Gillers, mate, I think it's the baby vomit on the shirt's giving you a bit of good luck. You know how when a bird poos on you in Australia, it's supposed to give you good luck? Well, could be similar with the baby spewing on you, gives you good luck. So Gillers, mate, you're onto something.
Yeah, well, it could be. In terms of team picks for Game Week 20, we've seen yours. You're rolling the transfer from what I know. Let's bring mine. And welcome to Car Crash City, where the grass is green and the football's not so pretty. 1 free transfer, 0.1 in the bank, and all we can see is flags, the same amount as there would be at your local beach. And for that case, that could be Manly. For me, it's probably Williamstown on a hot day. This is a side, and I am quite frankly uncomfortable fielding it as this. Yes, it would be handy to have 2 free transfers and go smack bang mini wildcard within -4, having the cup matches concluded along with the League Cup. But I feel for this is not a way to attack a game week when you have to. Quentin, in terms of transfers, I'm ranked 147k, so a really poor week. But remember, tough times don't last, but tough people do. Looking at this side, what's your take on it? What would you see as an okay move?
Matoma out. And I'd be targeting a Garnacho or a Sarabia if you're wanting sort of the differential. But I like those 2 moves from Matoma. And then maybe looking at Haaland out for... Oh, who would you go, though? Would you go in Alvarez? Do you like Alvarez this week? Or with the leftover money, maybe go Gordon to Foden?
Yeah, look, I thought about this. For a hit, I probably won't go Gordon to Foden in case it doesn't pay off, because I want something to pay off quite obvious. Matoma, I completely agree with. I think that's more concentration on that than an actual -4. It's more... So fat midfielder comes in, and I think Gordon would be on field should I only use a free transfer. Taylor would be first sub. So I think that is okay-ish, but it's a good way to attack it if I do go for the hit. But Haaland one, is it a feel of a wasted transfers? That's the only thing I see. Because Haaland could be as good as gold come next game week. So I'm a bit hesitant getting rid of Haaland this late stage. And our guys in the comments who are still around, we've hit the hour mark, and I call this the hour of power. What power moves do you reckon I should be making? I am the absolute governor so far this season, and we need to retain our crown for hitting the top of the mini league, just like Liverpool at the moment. And yes, Arsenal, we're not able to do it. So it's a very interesting one. So Matoma out, you think, into a Garnacho Sarabia. Is Michael Elise coming to this frame all of a sudden, or is the return of Eze hindered his potential?
I think it enhances his potential, but I just don't like Palace's attack, to be honest. If we're being fair, like even United's attack hasn't been great, and I'd be looking at Garnacho over Elise, but Elise definitely, if you were to go to Palace option, I prefer him over Eze at the moment, just because Elise's on free kicks.
Okay. Pascal Gross is another option. Where have you been considered? And from what I heard from Brighton, they've got 2 more injuries. So one of them being Bonanotte, who's gone down again in the Spurs game. They keep getting more injuries. In which other words, they've got more 19-year-olds they need to debut earlier than expected.
I would like to see Pascal Gross move back to right back, if we're being honest. Even though that young fella that played this morning actually looked quite good.
Hinshaw would?
Yeah. Gross's best attacking games have been from that wing back position, which I was quite surprised.
Gary, firstly, good evening or good morning to you, and you are absolutely spot on with this. It is certainly burning in the pocket. Jesus, it's going to be a sweaty Saturday, I must admit. I'll wait till the presses in case something, kerfuffle happens, and that just puts plans in a cheeky pirouette. Bernardo Silva, I had a look at, Colma. This is another good shout. Yeah, I think it's not bad because I know City have a double game week, but would his fantasy returns be sustainable, especially with the equation of Kevin De Bruyne eventually coming back in? He started training with the team. Haaland's going to come back in. I probably think Phil Foden's the best one, but you can't. Look, if I had cash in the bank, I'd just go Bowen or Phil Foden, not without hesitation, but I'll need to take out one of Salah or Son to get those guys in. It's a great, cracking discussion, and to be fair, I've just said most of the discussion. But yes, you're thinking Matoma to a cheeky Garnacho.
Yeah, I do. I think there'll be goals in that fixture. I think last season, what was it, 3-2 in that fixture at Nottingham Forest. So I think if we show up like we did in that second half, I think Garnacho is the player that you want to have. I think Rashford could get an attacking return, but I think it could be all Garnacho. And at his price, I think 4.8 still. He's a great option. I like Bernardo Silva. He's good friend of our pod, D10 Football. He likes to call his spaceship picks. He's actually had Bernardo Silva for a good chunk of the season, but he got him out last week, and he was filthy this morning. Yeah. So
interesting take on this one, Colm. Yeah, De Bruyne would affect Alvarez more than Silva. I agree with this because I know Pep has always liked Bernardo Silva in that team. He's always liked Phil Foden in that team. Haaland is his major staple. Always liked Kevin De Bruyne in that side. Always has liked Alvarez, but I think it's in terms of prioritization. Haaland probably wants to go up top alone instead of playing with Alvarez as 2 up top. We've seen it play 2 up top before. It has worked. But I think he's talking about cohesion. He just really wants to retain that squad depth. Jeez. So I want to go to Game Week 21 very quickly. Well, quickly and briefly, and succinctly and swiftly. So we've got, Salah bought at 12.6. Some bought at 9.3. This is actually quite hard. I think if I want to get so much money, I'm looking into get Trent in that defense eventually, probably for one of the budget defenders. In this situation, would you get rid of Son or Salah, or is it more team dependent up in the air?
I think obviously you bought him at 12.6, so there's a fair bit of value there because I think you're only getting 12.9 at the moment. If you sell him, I'd probably be moving on from Son and maybe moving towards, I guess, a Bowen. With that,
Yeah.
it leaves you a little bit of extra money than maybe going from a Zinchenko or a Gabriel up to Trent.
Yeah. Woodson from an Arsenal defender. Okay, yeah, but Arsenal have good short-term fixtures, but I think that's a good shift to Alexander-Arnold all of a sudden. Back, I just wanted to make sure we've gone through this. Transfers, captains, you've done what you need to. Bonus bank, I just want to give a shout out to. They're a fantastic free tool to help FPL managers edge their own mini leagues on a weekly basis. Number one clean sheet for this coming game week is City at 59%. Asset likely to score should he play Haaland at 67%. That's bonus bank done. Whatever you're doing this weekend, make sure you go and smash it. Now it's time for Captain's Corner, and I'm just going to take it away. Dance a night away. 66 minutes in. To those that have tuned in tonight, thank you once again. Let's go through them because just like a Melbourne Cup, whoever lives in Victoria, it's turned into an open 4-horse race for this game week. And we start with Mohamed Salah, who's at home to Newcastle. Now, the fact that really caught my eye today is that he has returned either a goal or an assist every time Liverpool have hosted Newcastle in the league. In his 6 encounters, such as that, he's returned 5 goals and 3 assists. Julian Alvarez at home to Sheffield United, the most transferred in player with now 220,000 owners, I think. The Blades have also conceded the equal most goals of any side away from home, along with Fulham, 23. Alvarez has had a goal and 4 assists in his last 7 league games. Is a popular captain choice with the absence of a Norwegian. Third one, Trent Alexander-Arnold at home to Newcastle, along with Salah's teammate, just down back. His last blank coming in game week 11. Since then, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, I can cover 2, 3, and 4. He's had 2 goals since then. He's had 3 assists and 4 clean sheets, shutouts. See you later. 2 years ago, he scored an absolute rocket at Anfield, which sealed a 3-1 win for Liverpool. But that was during the early days of Eddie Howe's reign as Newcastle boss. Heung-min Son being the last option at home to Bournemouth. The Korean has had 2 goals, 2 assists in his last 4. He did score in the reverse fixture when Spurs somehow lost 3-2 at home to Bucharest. Utara scored in a 95th minute winner in the middle of April. Furthermore, Tottenham's captain has had 16 goal involvements this season, which is the third of all players, only behind the inevitable Norwegian and the majestic Egyptian. Sorted. That's it for your Captain's Corner. That is it. Quentin, is there anything you want to give a shout out to? For example, it could be your own podcast. If you've got any exciting news in life, you got any shout outs you want to do? Oh, hang on, wait. Sorry, that was me. Carry on now.
On Monday, we'll have our podcast back. So obviously we didn't have enough time to do an episode for this week with the sharp turnaround, but I'll be back on Monday and we'll have FPL Matt Day will be on as guest host of the podcast as Damos off filming Breakback Mountain 2 in the bush somewhere in Victoria. So he won't have any reception, so he won't be on the pod, but I'll have Matt Day helping me out. So should be out Tuesday night, I think. Should be up on all of our sort of socials and streaming services, so you'll be able to tune in for some FPL content.
Quentin, as a final note, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on to this podcast once again. I hope you've had a lot of fun. I've personally loved the discussion. We've had so much to talk about. That's what is the beauty of being a fantasy manager at this time with deadlines coming thick and fast. thank you so much once again.
No, it's been great, mate. And Chazzy, one of the best fellas going around in Australia at the moment, mate. So I'm always happy to come on and have a chat with you.
Thank you. That goes a long way. I really appreciate it. Will, so we got, firstly, Jack, thank you very much. Appreciate it. When is Chaz going to be on our FPL Amateurs as well? So I may have asked once or twice, but yeah, let me know, Quentin, and sorted. I'll be there.
I'd say to be over the next couple of weeks because I'm going to need another guest on the podcast. So if you're happy to come on, mate, you'll be on.
You absolute beauty. And just before I go and just bow out, I just got to do one thing, and that is eat shit, Jack. See you later.